Thank you. Yeah, we are with Jonathan Mark. He's critical distance from Netherlands. And I would like you to talk a little bit about this experience of working with audience in order to encourage them to participate through the social media in the media.
I think we're moving to a situation now where each day about 1.6 million mobile phones are sold in the world. All these mobile phones operate in your private space, in other words, very close to you. And if your phone makes too much noise, right, you'll switch it off. You don't want something shouting at you in your private space. Broadcasters, in general, have been shouting through big, powerful transmitters, 50,000 watts of power, right? They've been shouting at people for decades. And if I shout at you now, you'll ask me to leave the studio. Nobody wants to be shouted at. So broadcasters have to learn to, instead of to shout, to share. And that's actually very difficult because most broadcasters are taught to tell a linear story. And they don't really want interference from the public. It's more of a performance. Whether it's a news piece or whether it's a piece of drama, it's very much a performance. So social media, if you just use social media like Facebook or Twitter to broadcast a message, that's one way, and it's simply for publicity, but you're not creating a conversation. Yep. And what you're starting to see is that some of the public broadcasters across Europe are changing their definition of success. They're saying it's not just the numbers of people that we reach, it's are we building a conversation in society? Are we acting as a catalyst for conversation? Yeah. Because otherwise we're not bringing value.
Yeah. Well, you said a word, share content, yeah. Share ideas through the new media. Yeah. But what kind of stories or what kind of content share people from audience? Not the big companies, but the people, common people.
Well, what you're starting to see in some broadcasters, BBC is a good example, but also some of the Scandinavian broadcasters, is they have what they call audience editors working in their television and radio station. Yeah. So let's say if we take news, what they do is that there will be a morning meeting where the editors say, well, this is the news as it's coming in from correspondents. But the audience editor will say, well, but this is what our audience is talking about, right? Because in many cases they've got news from other sources and they're discussing on forums, maybe on the blogs of the radio and television station, maybe on the blogs of the competing newspapers. So it's their input to say, well, what is our audience talking about? And is there expertise in the audience? Because in many cases the people who are commenting on blogs know something about the subject. Not all the time, but in many of the discussions they do. And so can you tap that talent? Can you involve the audience in the discussion? Can you find expertise using social media? So in order to be successful now with social media, you must integrate that into the journalistic process. Yeah. And if you don't do that, then you're just using it for publicity purposes.
Yeah. And well, this process implies a new concept. We talk about the media literacy. Yes. Not only about the use, the technical use of tools or gadgets, but the responsibility in using it. You know? How you improve, encourage this side of the matter?
I think it's very important that you are continually explaining, especially as a broadcaster, about how you're going to use this material. And you're also aware that many people don't yet fully understand the consequences of, let's say, appearing on television or uploading a piece of material, especially if it's a controversial issue, or it's something that may be used later against them, either by politicians or by somebody if they want to apply for a job. And I think the responsibility definitely rests on the broadcasters so that they use let's say, user-generated content in a responsible way. I've seen some examples where I think it's irresponsible. There's been a fire, right? And the television station says, and if you have pictures of the fire, you know, please send us the pictures of the fire so we can put them on television. that means to say that some people have gone to the fire, they've taken risks for which they haven't been paid.
Yeah.
I think a very dangerous situation, and we should be very lucky that people have not been killed.
Yeah.
That is irresponsible from the broadcaster's point of view.
Yeah, yeah.
But some of them understand that now, and I think that they're doing more things to involve the public in a conversation, and also saying thank you for taking part.
Yeah, you are talking about a very important issue, is the responsibility of one of the actors, right, of the new wave of communication. I mean, the industry. Right. There are responsibility in other sectors. I mean, the legal sector, no? Right. The educative sector. Right. What do you think about this? How these actors of social act in front of this new environment?
Well, some things haven't changed in the sense that when you're making a piece of content, or you're granting an interview, or you're doing something on Twitter, people need to be aware that in fact they are broadcasting. I mean, anything that they are doing can be seen later, and the internet has this huge memory. It will never forget. Right, so you have to bear that in mind. I'm doing quite a lot of work in West and East Africa with community radio stations that are trying to migrate to become community media centres. And one of the things that's come up has been the code of ethics. In other words, if you're in front of a microphone, what responsibilities do you have? And what they've discovered in Africa, where there is still a danger of hate media, like we saw in Rwanda. Yeah. Right? There are areas in Africa and also in South Asia where, unfortunately, we have hate media operating at the moment. If you want to counter hate media, one-sided, in some cases very dangerous media, you don't counteract it with peace media, because you counteract it by independent media. And what they do for example, in Benin, is they have a code of ethics, which say, and they hang that in every studio. So when you go into the studio, you see this code of ethics, right? And it basically says that when that microphone goes live, you will not broadcast something that will incite people to hatred. And if you do, you'll be taken off the air immediately. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good step.
Yeah, you're talking about the rules, no? Clear rules of the game, right? No, and these new rules in this new game where everybody can participate, no? Yeah. Well, thank you very much for the interview.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.